before I start, I'll just talk about Vision Quest 2020 very quickly, just to give you some context. It's a nonprofit organization, and they are focused solely on the early detection of vision disorders and preventable blindness in children. And one of the things that the organization does in its education, advocacy, and outreach efforts is they provide training for a variety of vision screening modalities, including EyeSpy 2020, which of course is why we're here today. Now, this agenda probably looks a little bit overwhelming, but I promise we'll get through it in about an hour, maybe a little bit more, but I'll try and keep it to an hour. Like I said earlier, though, if you have questions, just please stop me. Sometimes it helps to put a face to a name. My name is Rich Terendi. I have the privilege of co-founding the nonprofit organization, and I'm also the CEO of the technology company that developed EyeSpy 2020. I am a true technology geek, both by degree and I guess by career. And so I really do consider it a privilege to be developing technology, of which EyeSpy 2020 is part of. The technology platform that we've developed in order to help children, and also we hope help schools as well. So what is EyeSpy 2020? Well, if you've not seen it before, and perhaps you have, but from the child's perspective, it looks like a very simple matching game. Behind the scenes, what EyeSpy 2020 is a very complex yet very easy to use vision screening program. And what differentiates EyeSpy 2020 from any other vision screening method is that it evaluates the entire vision system of the child while they're playing a simple video game, again, from their perspective. Now, what is the impetus behind EyeSpy 2020? And I won't spend too much time on this because, quite frankly, I am more than likely preaching to the choir. But some people that are not involved in caring for children or in the vision industry specifically are not aware of some of the information that I'm about to share. So first of all, vision disorders are extraordinarily common. Up to 1 in 4 children has a vision problem. And as you've probably witnessed yourself, vision is just integral and critically important to virtually every aspect of children's lives. So the lack of detecting vision problems puts children in a position of compromised health, and also compromises their academic performance for very obvious reasons. I'll give you some statistics in a minute. And to add insult to injury, children that are already experiencing problems in school or come from depressed socioeconomic situations are disproportionately affected by vision problems, which is incredibly frustrating. I'm going to share with you just a little bit of research that's been done in the past decade or so. Here's an article out of Midwestern University. They talk about up to 20% of children having uncorrected vision issues. So 25% of children have a vision problem. 20% actually have a undetected or uncorrected vision disorder. That means we're only screening or treating, sorry about the background noise, only treating only about 20% of children that have a vision problem. The reason why this is so problematic is because there are studies that suggest that up to 80% of what children learn comes through the visual processing of information. So commonsensically, if a child cannot see the blackboard or the whiteboard, the front of the classroom, then how do we expect them to learn? And that's a very common visual dysfunction, is nearsightedness. So unfortunately, vision problems can very easily be confused for learning difficulties. And again, we're talking about adding insult to injury because children are being labeled potentially incorrectly. Here's another study that talks about the relationship between a certain vision disorder and either the misdiagnosis or the exacerbation of symptoms of attention-related disorders. So imagine children with this particular vision problem are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed and potentially medicated for attention-related disorders. And that is a long topic in and of itself. And in fact, chronic vision issues actually adversely impact children's general health. In fact, specifically, children that have chronic hearing or vision conditions are 50% more likely to suffer with obesity. So it just doesn't affect academic performance, it affects their general health as well. Again, not wanting to spend too much time, but here's another article that talks about how amblyopia, where children can only see clearly out of one eye, actually adversely impacts their ability to read. They read considerably more slowly than non-amblyopic children. So, as you well know, reading performance is a key indicator or performance metric that is required in school. Here's another study that looks at the rate of return, or the return on invested dollars for a variety of publicly funded preventative health models. Now, this comes from the state of Michigan, and they do this study probably about every 5 years. Sometimes it goes longer, but this particular study is from 2013. I've not seen updated numbers, but every year that they've done this, or every time that they've done this, the numbers are very similar. And what I'd like to point out is just that vision screening offers the most significant return on investment. And you can see up on the screen, it talks about $162 to 1. So out of all the preventative health services that are provided by the state of Michigan has found that the greatest return on their investment came from vision screening. Now, in the interest of trying to help individuals like ourselves try to figure out what is the return on our investment, so to speak, we have a calculator available at EyeSpy2020.com. And it's state specific. It pulls all of the references that you can see at the bottom of the screen. So it uses all of that information to try and help estimate what the cost savings would be, looking at one very small thing, and that is reducing grade level retention due to undetected vision disorders. So I won't spend any time on that, but you're certainly more than welcome to go and play around on that if you wish. Cassie, I'm watching the chat box. I don't see you typing in any questions, so I'm just going to continue, but please make sure to stop me at any point. So let's talk about how vision screenings have been done. As you may well be aware, really there's never been a standardized approach, quite frankly. And that's actually part of the reason why so many children with vision problems go missed. It's not due to lack of good intentions from professionals. It's just that there has been no consistently applied method that's been medically validated. So eye charts are the most common method, and in order to use an eye chart correctly, takes a lot of training, and in some states requires certification. You have to interpret the results from the child, the interaction with the child. You have to record everything manually, and that's, of course, quite laborious, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you that. So the reason why vision problems are often missed is because children can peek or memorize the static wall chart, and at the end of the day, what we're talking about is something that is very costly, both to health and education when there are children struggling. As a point of interest, the eye chart was invented in 1862, so we're talking about well over 150 years ago. And in fact, eye charts have been in use in schools since 1899. So, the eye chart's not a cutting-edge technology. Having said all that, There is a way to use an eye chart very effectively, and that is by following a very specific set of rules referred to as a protocol. And in fact, there is a published paper called the Amblyopia Treatment Study Visual Acuity Testing Protocol. I know that's a mouthful, but this is what we would refer to as the gold standard when it comes to vision screening using a wall chart to assess visual acuity. It's extraordinarily complex and time-consuming. Probably takes about 10 to 15 minutes to evaluate a child's visual acuity. But if you're going to use a chart, this is certainly the best way to do that. So there are several medical organizations, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Ophthalmology, the American Association for Pediatric Ophthalmology and Strabismus, the American Association of Certified Orthoptists. They put together a joint committee. So all those organizations contribute expertise to a committee that said, okay, there are new vision screening technologies that are coming out there. What do we recommend? What are age-appropriate methods for vision screening? So if you look at the bottom right corner of your screen, you'll see the Welsh Allen Spot device, which is an amazing device, by the way. It's also referred to as a binocular autorefractor. This is an objective type of screening. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in just a second. But it's amazing. But it does not assess the entire visual system of the child. So I'm going to talk about that, like I said, in a minute. For children between the ages of 3 and 5, those devices are an acceptable alternative. But what is really preferred for children that are able, and certainly by the time they're in school, but even in preschool children, the preferred recommended method is a subjective screening, which is the wall chart. Okay, that's where we assess the child's visual acuity. So I want to talk about very briefly, why is that the case? So these devices that are shown on the screen are all objective devices. They're instruments that what they do is actually, from my perspective, again, remember I'm a geek, but it takes measurements of the child's eyes and then evaluates those measurements for risk factors. So it's a very intriguing technology, very sophisticated, but it does not look beyond the child's eyeballs. And I'm going to show you that diagrammatically why that's important. So a subjective screening is a little bit different. In fact, if you've ever gone to the eye doctor, an optometrist, or an ophthalmologist, this is what they do. They use subjective techniques where they dynamically interact with you or whoever their subject is, right? They have to read an eye chart and put different lenses in front of your face and ask you A or B, B or C. And what they're doing throughout that entire process is they're determining your ability to see. They're not taking measurements of the eye. They're actually determining your ability to see. Now, like we talked about earlier, this requires an extensive amount of training, and there is that human interpretation. And like I had mentioned earlier, it takes a lot of time. But that is what subjective screening is. So if you want to look at this or think about this diagrammatically, those are the child's eyeballs, and that is what an objective screening looks like. Or that's what I should say an objective vision screening is evaluating. It's measuring the child's eyes. However, a child's ability to see is comprised of much more than just the eyeballs. You have the optic nerve, you have the vision center of the brain, you have all of the wiring and the connective or the cognitive processing of the vision center of the brain. So a child's ability to see is not determined by just looking at their eyes. You have to look at everything in totality. That is what a subjective screening, in fact, does. So what we wanted to do was develop a technology that provided the best of both worlds. So if you think about those objective or instrument-based devices, they're extraordinarily fast, Very, very easy to use. You don't need to be certified. The reporting is instantaneous. They're fantastic answers for vision screening young children. But we still didn't have a solution for older children, and especially a solution that met the Joint Committee recommendations for how to vision screen older children. So that's what EyeSpy is. It combines all of the advantages of an objective screening, but it is in fact a subjective vision screening. And what it's doing is removing the need for certification, it's removing the need for human interpretation, and it's providing you an assessment very quickly of the child's visual acuity, depth perception, and color vision. And of course, it does all the data reporting, collection, storage, and reporting for you. So this solution is a huge advancement in the art of vision screening because children cannot cheat or memorize the test. All of the intelligent vision screening protocols are built in, and they've been medically validated. So you don't have to worry about what eye chart to show or what sizes to show or how to interpret the child's responses or struggling or anything like that. So it's extraordinarily fast. And like I had mentioned, it does the automated data collection. I won't spend too much time on this except to say that one of the things that's really beneficial for schools is that the reports are available in Spanish or English with the click of a button. And because it's a software program, you really can't break it, lose it, or God forbid your computers get stolen. You just download the program again. So if you drop an $8,000 camera, you're out $8,000. If the computer breaks, you just download it onto another computer. Like I keep mentioning, this program has been independently and medically validated at the Storm Eye Institute, which is one of the top ophthalmic clinics in the world. This paper is also available on our website if you're interested. The one thing that I will point out here is that their conclusive statement in the results section was that when comparing EyeSpy to a certified ophthalmic technician using a gold standard reference device to assess whether or not a child has a vision disorder, the results between EyeSpy and a certified ophthalmic technician using, like I said, a completely separate device, which actually cost $20,000, the results were not significantly different. So I want to point out that EyeSpy 2020 is not, nor will it ever be, a replacement for a full eye exam. But when it comes to detecting which children have a vision problem, it's extraordinarily accurate and reliable. I'm about to show you a demo, but before I do, I just want to give you an idea diagrammatically, because we're going to be talking a little bit about the data reporting features. So I just wanted to kind of show you diagrammatically what is possible with EyeSpy. So EyeSpy automatically collects, securely stores in the HIPAA FERPA compliant data system all of your vision screening data. No one else other than your school has access to your data. The data is never sold, it's never shared. It is locked down just for your school. And then at any point in time, through EyeSpy, you can access and create summary reports, individual screening reports. You can export your data into Microsoft Excel. And the reason why that's important is because you don't have to worry about safeguarding your data. We do that for you. And you have access to your data in perpetuity. It never goes away. The only time your data goes away is if your school requests that the data be expunged from the database. And then there's no getting it back at that point. Once it's wiped out, it's gone forever. So I'm about to show you a demonstration of EyeSpy. And this is kind of where the rubber hits the road, if you will. Oh, hold on a second. I'm sorry. I want to switch screens here. So this is what the main interface of EyeSpy 2020 looks like. And I want to go through essentially two things very quickly, because if you understand these two things, then you're going to be an expert in EyeSpy after you do about 2 vision screenings, maybe the first one. So the first thing is, how do you do a vision screening? The way that you do a vision screening is one of 2 ways to enter the student's information. So I'm going to be the proctor, and let's say that I'm vision screening a student. I'm going to say that the student's ID is 123123. Now, I'm required to put in the student ID unless I uncheck this box. Then this becomes optional, and in fact, I don't have to put in student ID. So that's entirely your prerogative how you want to do that. My student's name is the very creative John Doe. He happened to be born on, let's say, May 13th of 2013, and I can optionally select their ethnicity if I want to do that. I don't have to. He is in 1st grade. His homeroom teacher, or his teacher, is Smith. Again, I'm extraordinarily creative, as you can tell. We'll select gender, and this is whether or not he's wearing distance glasses, prescription glasses, but for seeing at distance. Because with EyeSpy 2020, we vision screen at a distance of 10 feet. So if John was prescribed reading glasses, in other words, glasses that he is only to wear when reading a book, then he would not put them on for this test. But if he's got glasses that he wears when he's on the playground or to see the front of the classroom, then we would, he would wear his glasses for this test. Or if he forgot them at home or they're lost or broken, you can select those options as well. So that's one way that you can enter the student's information in and then hit begin screening. The other way that you can do or select a child is to click the button that says select student from list. And if you have uploaded your rosters into our secure system, then you have access to all your students. So let's say that this particular student's name was Savannah. So I start typing in the first few letters of her name, and then if I wanted to further filter it and say, well, I know her last name starts with T. Okay, so now I've got 2 out of the 1,700 students that I had. I've immediately reduced the list down to just a couple students. Or if I know that the child is in 3rd grade, I can come here and say, okay, 3rd grade, show me all the 3rd grade students that are in Chavez's class. So I can very quickly filter lists, even though I've got a ton. If I clear the search, you can see that I've got 1,870 preloaded students, but I can very quickly find Colton by just typing in a few letters and then select Colton Thompson by double clicking. Okay, now that's all fake data. I should let you know. I'm not violating HIPAA here. These are all just fake names that have been put in for purposes of demonstration. So I ask Colton, or I look at Colton, are those glasses that you're wearing to see the blackboard or to play outside? He says yes, and now I hit begin screening. So that is literally all you have to do to start the vision screening process. Select a kid from the list, find out about their glasses, hit begin screening. Now, my next step is just follow the instructions on the screen. So in this case, it's saying make sure the student is wearing his clean corrective lenses with no eye patch or colored glasses. That'll make sense in just a minute. And press enter when ready. So I've got the keyboard and the laptop, right 10 feet away in front of the student. Now I press enter, and the first thing that Colton's going to do is they're going to select the character that they wish to play. So he moves the mouse left and right and selects the character that he wants to play. And now you can see that it's a very simple matching game. So, oh, Cassie, it looks like okay, hopefully you're back. Hopefully you can hear me. Sounded like you dropped off for just a second. Okay, so now you can see it's a very simple matching game. And so what Colton's doing right now is just looking at the top, sees the letter at the bottom. The characters, the letters, whatever's being shown is automatically selected based on the age of the student. So you don't have to worry about selecting the correct chart. And what you'll notice is that the letter at the bottom of the screen is getting smaller and smaller automatically. So you don't have to worry about how far down the chart you go. It's doing that for you. By the way, the cartoon animations that you're seeing can be turned off. So if you're trying to screen a lot of children very quickly, and you can install this on multiple computers simultaneously, you know, there's no limit on the number of computers onto which this can be installed. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now it says place a patch over the student's left eye under his corrective lenses. So we provide you the patches and you place the patch, and now we're testing the student's right eye because we were covering his left eye. So again, the idea of matching just continues. It's very simple. Children instinctively understand the idea of matching, but if not, you can just tell them to match, or, you know, and if they can't see the letters, just to take their best guess. Now we're going to move the patch to the child's right eye. So now it's their left eye that's under test. And the test continues. If I get the answer wrong, I'll just show you. You'll see the letter gets larger at the bottom. It does that automatically, and that's called a reinforcement gate to get the child back on track. And then we continue right back down to what is referred to as critical line for that particular child's age group. Once we know that the child has acceptable visual acuity in both eyes, then we continue. And in this particular case, we're going to test his depth perception or stereo vision. Now, you won't see the shape that's popping out of that screen. And the only way that you would see it is if you had red-blue glasses. I don't have my red-blue glasses, so I can't see the shapes either. But I want to show you something that is also a very nice feature of EyeSpy 2020. It determines whether or not the child needs to be referred to the eye doctor based on, again, a medically validated protocol. So if you notice, I did not pass the depth perception portion of the test. And yet the report on the screen, which, by the way, if I press the S key, shows up in Spanish, and that's a real translation, it's not Google. I'll press E for English so that I can read it. And unfortunately, I'm not bilingual. So, this says that Colton's vision screening was normal. Well, that's interesting because I know I failed the stereo. I couldn't see it. And in fact, stereo isn't even showing up. So the question is, well, why wouldn't we refer Colton? Well, we don't want to refer Colton to the eye doctor only for stereo if he's wearing corrective lenses. So here's what's interesting. The protocol knew that he's wearing his corrective lenses, didn't pass stereo, but obviously has acceptable visual acuity. Therefore, we do not refer Colton to the eye doctor. Now, if Colton was not wearing eyeglasses and failed stereo, then his report would look a little bit different. And I want to show you what that looks like. So in order to show you that, I'm going to get out of the list. We're not going to do another vision screening. We're going to go into reports right here. And I want to show you what a child that has failed a vision screening, what that looks like, okay? So in order to do that, I'm going to select again, you can see my creativity here, John Doe. I'm going to double click John Doe's report. And this is a vision screening that suggested that there may be a vision problem. This is a child that passed visual acuity, passed color, but failed stereo, but does not have his glasses on. So therefore, we're basically recommending that if your child's not not currently being seen by an eye doctor, go see one. And in fact, there's a portion of the report right here for the eye doctor to fill out and return to the school. Doesn't mean that they will, but you can certainly request that. And this is actually pertinent information for the school to have, so that you know that John Doe had glasses prescribed and should be wearing them. And may, are there any other services that may be of benefit? So I wanted to show you that, because this is the reporting section of EyeSpy 2020. So I don't have many vision screenings in here, so I'm going to expand the date range a little bit just to give us some more data. But just like when you're selecting a student from the preloaded list, you can also filter the information here. So let's say I wanted to look at 5th grade only, and I just want to look at those 5th graders that did not pass. So 2 mouse clicks, or, not a mouse click, but I entered the number 5 there. So I put in 5th grade, I uncheck pass, so that these 2 reports that are passes, those disappear, and now I only have failed for 5th grade. Or I could do something like, I just want to look at a particular teacher, like Teacher Smith. So I start to type that in, and now I've just got Smith. And if Smith has multiple classrooms, maybe I say just the 1st grade. Or let's see, if I wanted to look at, here's another example. You can see how many vision screenings you have. Like I'm filtered on Smith right now. I've got 20 reports. If I take that filter away, I've got 54 children. So during this date range, I vision screened 54 kids. If I want to know how many just failed, I could uncheck pass, and now it tells me 24 out of the 54 children failed. So you can look at data that way, or you can search for a specific report. I want to look for Kim, and I type in the first few letters. I can look for a specific teacher, a particular proctor, and I can do some other things as well. So let's say that I filter on Smith, just like that. And now let's say I'm going to look at just kindergarten. And now I want to print a summary report. I want to show you what the summary report's going to look like, and I'm going to print it to a PDF so that we can actually see the report. So let me just open this up very quickly. I apologize, but obviously I can't print it on your computer there, so I want to show you what it looks like here. So this is what the report looks like. It'll print out looking just like this. It'll tell you, what was the date range for all the vision screenings, how many records did the report yield, when did you print the report, the name of your school, how many pages, and then it will also show you filters, whatever filtering you have in place. So when you look at this report, you know exactly what you're looking at. Just Smith, just kindergarten. And these are the, so you can, anyway, my point is you can look at the summary reports. The other thing that you can do, if this is of interest, is you can print, I'm going to go back in EyeSpy, you can print all of the reports at once. So let's say you don't want to print the reports one at a time. So you can go like this. Let's say whatever's on the screen, however many reports are being shown, that's what will print when I click the button that says print all 4 vision screening reports. So again, I'm going to print it to a PDF, and I just want to show you what that looks like. But you can imagine it's really just going to be, I think, what you would expect, and that is, it is the 4 individual vision screening reports. So you can go into reports, you can do all of this filtering and selection, and then you can print all the reports at once. The other thing that you can do is you can export the data into Excel. And I don't have to show you what the Excel spreadsheet looks like, but you're more than happy to do that. If you want to play around with it, you can do that. Or if you want me to do that, just tell me. But what it does is it puts a report, an Excel spreadsheet, right on your desktop. And if you have questions about what all the columns and everything mean, then we can have a conversation about that. But this is just basically all of the information that was collected in the report. So this can actually be imported into your electronic health record system if you wanted. Oh, sorry about that. That's a little bit loud. Let's see. So I'm not going to save that. Okay, so that is EyeSpy 2020 in a nutshell. Now, there's obviously some more capability, turning on color, when to turn it on, and we can certainly talk about all those things. But I wanted to give you the most important parts. How do you vision screen, and how do you pull reports? The one last thing that I want to show you is feedback. And the only reason why I want to show that to you is because one of the reasons why EyeSpy 2020 works so well, besides from the medical rigors that the technology was subjected to, is this little feedback box right here. So you can say whatever you want. Rich, I don't like your voice. That's a fair comment. Now, here's the thing. This is truly anonymous. So if you want to receive a phone call from us or have a correspondence, you absolutely 100%, you've got to say, hey, this is Cassie, and here's my number, or here's my email, or, whatever. Because if you just leave it with your comment, there is no way for us to know where this is coming from. And that's purposeful, by the way, because we want people to not be afraid to say whatever it is that they need to say. So obviously, if you send an email, we know your email address. And so people might be afraid to say something. So we want to make sure that you feel free to use that feedback button. So don't laugh, but you can send whatever you want, and all of them get read. That much I can tell you. Okay, receiving EyeSpy. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I'd much rather answer specific questions that you may have if you've got any. But suffice it to say, there's a process. You get an email. There's surveys. There's, obviously signing up for this webinar. I do want to talk about this a little bit, though, because one of the questions that we're asked is, how long does it take to vision screen? And again, once you are proficient with EyeSpy, you're going to have an intuitive sense of how long it takes to vision screen. However, again, if you go to EyeSpy2020.com, click on planning, there's a planning tool. And you put in all your information about who you want to vision screen, and it will give you an estimate of how long it will take to vision screen based on how many computers you're going to be using. And then in addition to providing you that information, it also has some additional points for you to consider. So what screening model do you want to use? How to, deal with special situations, making sure that your IT department's involved, all of that stuff. Have, attend training, make sure that everyone's involved, that, either watches a webinar video or attends training, that type of thing. So, again, EyeSpy2020.com. I want to give you an idea of what it looks like when you're actually using the program. Okay, and then I'm going to, again, make sure that you are getting your questions answered, but I still don't see anything in the chat box. So either you don't have any questions or you fell asleep. Either one's a possibility when you're having to listen to me. This is what it looks like when EyeSpy is in use. This is obviously they're conducting 4 vision screenings simultaneously in the school library. You can see they've got tables separated by 10 feet of distance. Here's a top view at the bottom. So you can, this is showing 6 laptops, but in this particular photo I've got, there's only 4 been set up at the school. The computer is connected to the mouse. You're welcome, Cassie. But that mouse, it's a wired mouse, and then we provide a 10-foot extension cable. So that white cable, I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but that white cable is what is plugged into the computer. It's a USB extension cable. So that's how the child can sit 10 feet away, because as you know, mouse cables are not, 15 feet long. So we provide a 10-foot extension cable, and that's how you also measure this distance precisely from the screen to the child's eyes, 10 feet. So you use that white cable as a measuring stick or a measuring rope, and then you plug it into the computer once you've got the distances set up properly, and you're off to the races. So this next slide is just asking if you have any questions, but you don't, at least not yet. So I'm going to continue. This is what we provide you when you subscribe for EyeSpy, and that's the mouse extension cable we just talked about. Those are the red-blue glasses that I don't have on, so I couldn't see the random dot stereograms, but these are specially made for EyeSpy. And when you put them on and you look at those stereograms, you can see shapes popping out. These are the reversible occluding glasses. If a child is not wearing corrective lenses, then you use these to occlude their eyes. If they are wearing corrective lenses, then you use the eye patch, and you can either use it under their glasses or over their glasses. Either way is fine. We provide a near stereo card, because if the child cannot see those shapes wearing those glasses at 10 feet, then we want to find out if they can see them up close. So you don't always use this, but the computer program will tell you exactly when to use this. This says layer response panel. That's not actually what we provide. We provide an HOTV response panel, just different letters on there than the Leia symbols. And we provide a quick start guide, but if you don't get the quick start guide, it's available on our website, which is either EyeSpy2020.com, or the nonprofit's website is visionquest2020.org, which I'm going to show you in just a second. But let's talk about what the quick start guide really there's 4 sections to it, but each page is about this straightforward. So I want to talk about setup real quick, because there's a couple things I want to point out. One, when you put the computers on the table, I have done this myself, just to let you know. That's why it's in here. Make sure you plug the laptop into the wall, because I've forgotten, and in the middle of vision screening, the battery dies. So just keep that in mind. Adjust the screen so that there's no glare. Should be pointed right at the child, based on the seating position of the child, obviously. Position the tables and the computers in such a way that there's exactly 10 feet. Even if the child leans in a little bit, 5, 6 inches, that's not going to affect the test, the accuracy of the test. So, but we want to start out at 10 feet. Connect the mouse to that cable like we talked about. This is kind of important. We want to make sure that the space between children is at least 2 feet. That way our proctor has an egress between the children where he or she is not going to block the view of this child or this child to their respective computer screens. And let's see. You're just going to want to make sure that you've got a mouse and the stereo glasses, occluding glasses at each station. The one thing that I will say is that when a child first sits down, I always take the mouse off the table. Because if I don't, when I'm trying to type in the kids' information and they're sitting there moving the mouse around like this, I can't control the mouse, because I've got the mouse at the laptop, I've got the little touchpad, so I can navigate with the touchpad, but the kid's sitting there at the table playing with the mouse. So anyway, I just pick the mouse up and bring it towards me, and then I hand them the mouse when I'm ready for them to play the game. And then you just launch EyeSpy. And an internet connection is not required while you're vision screening. So just to let you know, if you don't have, internet throughout your entire facility, you don't need it in order to use EyeSpy. If you have any questions, Cassie, I'm watching that chat box. So you just let me know. I'll talk briefly about the website, visionquest2020.org. It may look a little bit different when you get there, but the concepts are generally the same. I think we've got some new notifications up on the main screen. But under resources, so you go to the homepage, you go to resources, and you come back, and you come down to materials. And this is great information for you. You can download your response panel, stereo cards, user guides, quick start guides, parental information if you decide that you want to hand information out to the parents. It's also available in Spanish. Informational brochure if you want to talk to your colleagues about EyeSpy, you can more than welcome to print that off. But this is where you'd go to get any materials that you might not have for one reason or another. I also want to talk about resources and technical support, because sometimes you may have parents that call you up and say, hey, I need help finding a doctor, blah, blah, blah. Just direct them to EyeSpy, tell them to go to resources and go to the library, and then click on, whatever section they need. I'm going to show that to you on our website in just a second, but resources library for parents that may have questions, okay? Also, for your IT people, because your IT people are critically important to the success of your program. They're critically important, period. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a computer geek guy, whatever. They really are critical. This is a software product that is to be installed on their computers, the assets for which they are responsible. So make sure they go to resources and go down to installation. Okay, installation. And this is where they get their own set of installation instructions, and they get to download and install the software right from there. So I'm just about done, and trying to keep it to an hour, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions, Cassie, so just let me know. Additional support. Here's the deal. Obviously, you have unlimited access. You can attend. If you're a glutton for punishment and you want to listen to me for another hour, you can do that anytime. You just sign up for another webinar. It's never happened in history. So just to let you know, you can always email me. I'm going to give you some contact information for me. And I like to be on the front lines here. We've got thousands of schools globally that use this program without exaggeration, not just across the country, but in the Middle East, Africa, South America, Egypt, all over the world. We have stuff going on in India as well. So, so I'm not kidding. I really like to be on the front lines. I've got a very good support staff, but I'm probably a little bit of a control freak. So I'm going to be giving you my information because I want to make sure that you're provided everything that you need as quickly as possible. So you also have telephone support. This is something that we find that most schools really don't need. It's not to say you shouldn't use it. If you have a problem, you get in touch with us. And, we can also log on to your computers remotely and help your IT people or help you remotely. And obviously, with global clientele, that's what we have to, be able to provide. But, the first time you start using it, you're going to have questions, but I'm extraordinarily confident that you are going to be an expert in very short order. So without further ado, I want you to have access to my stuff. I'm also going to type this into the chat box so that you can copy and paste it out of there. So give me just a second. That way you don't have to go through, and you probably already have my email, but anyway, I want you to have that. Okay, so copy and paste that stuff out of there. And that way you have direct access to me. And when you get an email back from me, you're going to have my direct line and everything else, my direct cell. So I'm never beyond I'm never without that ability. I travel a lot. I'm in meetings a lot. So sometimes when you call, it may go to voicemail. Sometimes emails go unread for an hour or two. But in general, we're fairly responsive. So, so with that, I am going to thank you